The sun blazed mercilessly over the dusty streets of Lagos as Adana stumbled forward, clutching her newborn baby tightly to her chest. Behind her, her 7 other daughters, ranging from ages 1 to 8, trailed like frightened ducklings, their tiny feet coated in dirt, their clothes torn and tattered. Desmond's voice still rang in her ears, sharp and venomous. "Get out of my house, you cursed woman! Look at you, 8 children and not a single son to carry my name. You're useless. Your daughters are useless. I never want to see your face again." The memory of his hands shoving her out of the gate, her children wailing behind her, made fresh tears spill down her cheeks. She had no family to run to. Her parents had long passed, and her siblings had their own struggles. The streets were now their home. Days turned into weeks. Weeks bled into months. Adana and her daughters became a pitiful sight, huddled under bridges, begging for scraps of food, their once bright eyes now dull with hunger and exhaustion. Passers-by whispered, some shaking their heads in pity, others muttering about irresponsible women who bore too many children. "Look at them, like stray dogs," a market woman sneered one day. "8 girls? No wonder the man threw her away," another chuckled cruelly. "8 children? In this economy, you should have closed your legs," another woman said, passing by them as she spat on the floor. "What kind of life is this?" Another stranger spat at them as he passed. "Probably a witch who angered her husband," one of them said. Adana swallowed the insults, but her heart shattered every time her eldest daughter, Neka, asked in a small voice, "Mama, why did Papa leave us?" She had no answers, only silent tears. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. Adana had once been a proud wife, hopeful with each pregnancy. After her first daughter, she had smiled. "The next one will be a boy," she assured herself and her husband Desmond. But the second came, another girl, then the third, and the fourth. With each birth, Desmond's patience wore thinner. "You're eating up all my male children," he would accuse, his voice laced with fury. "You're useless. Your womb is cursed, that's why you keep giving me useless female children." By the time Adana birthed the 7th child, which turned out to be a girl again, Desmond's patience had completely worn off. "I'm done with you. I'm not having any of this nonsense again. You will pack your bags and leave my house with your filthy children," he told her one sunny afternoon after he had just gotten back from work. Adana, on hearing this, fell to her knees and started crying. "My husband, please have mercy on us. You know we don't have anywhere else to go if you should chase us away. Please just give me one last chance. I promise I'll give you a boy this time around." Adana begged Desmond, holding the ends of his trousers, but he kicked her away. "Don't touch me, you unfortunate woman," Desmond shouted at her. "Please, Desmond, just one last chance," she pleaded, as she clutched her sides from the pain of Desmond's kick. "Fine. I'll give you just one last chance, and if you should mistakenly birth any useless girl again, be prepared to leave my house," Desmond said with a tone of finality as he left her and walked out of the room. "Thank you," she muttered, not sure if he heard her. Adana decided to visit the hospital the next day to actually find out why she kept on having female children. "Madame, it's the man's sperm that determines the gender of a child," the doctor had explained. "Your husband has very few Y chromosomes, so biologically, the fault isn't yours." This revelation had stunned her, but how could she tell Desmond? He would never believe her. His ego would never accept that he was the reason for their daughters. So she stayed silent, praying that this 8th pregnancy would be different. As Adana prepared for her 8th pregnancy, she wanted to make sure that it was going to be a boy, because that was her last hope. And so she did everything in her power to ensure that she gives birth to a boy. Adana did different things. She met women who already had boys and inquired what they ate. Whatever recommendations they gave, she did it all. She ate different foods and fruits, which she believed was able to make a woman to conceive a baby boy. She fasted and prayed, always went to church and always read her Bible. Even her pastor assured her that she was going to conceive a boy this time around. He said that he had specifically seen it in a vision. Adana also went to the hospital to find out the best time to take in during her ovulation for a male child. And so with all these things, Adana was convinced that this time around she was going to give birth to a boy. When she eventually got pregnant, she was overjoyed. But her husband Desmond wasn't still 100% convinced. He wanted to be sure, firstly, that it was going to be a boy before he was going to do anything. He needed proof first, a valid proof. And so Adana waited until the pregnancy was about 3 months old before she went to the hospital to find out what the gender of the baby was. She couldn't do this earlier because the pregnancy had to reach a certain stage before she could determine the gender of the baby. She did the scan, and the result came out as she had hoped for. Yes, indeed, she was expecting a baby boy. Adana was so overjoyed, she couldn't wait to share the good news with her husband as well. She took the test results and quickly rushed home. On getting home, she didn't even change out of her clothes. She just rushed to the living room where her husband Desmond was seated on the couch and jumped on him, screaming in excitement while holding the test result up. Desmond was surprised by his wife's sudden display. But then when he saw the envelope in her hands, he knew that she had brought good news. He hurriedly took it from her and read the contents. His eyes were wide in shock after reading it, and then he still asked her again, just for a confirmation. After Adana confirmed that she was indeed carrying a male child, Desmond leaped for joy, clutching the result tightly in his hands and screaming at the top of his voice. "Finally, I'm going to have a male child." He sat back on the chair and embraced Adana tightly. She could swear that she saw tears in her husband's eyes. That was the first time she was ever seeing her husband tearing up. Indeed, he was so happy. Adana also couldn't remember the last time that Desmond had hugged her or treated her like his wife, like she mattered. And so in that moment, Adana also found herself crying as well, as she had always longed for her husband's genuine love and affection. And so, from that fateful day, that Desmond found out she was going to be having a baby boy, he started treating her well. He showered her with all the love, care, and affection, always calling her sweet names, got her whatever she wanted, even massaged her legs for her, something Adana would have never thought her husband was capable of ever doing. And for the first time, Adana felt truly loved and cared for. And all this was because of her male pregnancy. The day for Adana's delivery eventually came, and she went to the hospital to give birth with so much joy in her heart. But what she didn't know was that fate had other plans in store for her. After a hard labor in the labor room, Adana eventually gave birth. But what happened next was shocking. The doctors handed her a baby girl with smiles on their faces as they congratulated her. "Congratulations, ma'am. You've given birth to a beautiful baby girl." But Adana didn't hear what they were saying because she was in so much shock, she couldn't process what was happening. How? How was it possible? But the scan clearly showed that she was expecting a male child. No! There had to be some mistake somewhere, she thought. Adana reached out to the doctor and informed her that there must have been a mistake, or a mix-up, for she was expecting a boy and not a girl. But the doctor told her that the baby in her hands was her biological child, and moreover, she was the only one who gave birth that day. And the hospital wouldn't dare try to switch babies, because that was illegal. Adana still didn't understand what was happening, and so she asked the doctor to help her reach out to the lab where the scan was conducted. The doctor did so, and it turned out that she was given a wrong result. There was a mix-up with her and another pregnant woman, and the woman's result had been given to her. After hearing this, Adana broke down in tears. So she hadn't been pregnant with a male child all this while. She cried so much because she knew that she was finished. She was done for if her husband should hear about this. The doctor tried to comfort and encourage her that a female child wasn't useless, and just because it was a female doesn't make them any less of a human being. But Adana wasn't listening to any of that, because she knew that there was fire on the mountain. She knew what the birth of this girl child meant for her, and it broke her heart. She dreaded her husband's reaction. Eventually, Desmond came to the hospital to welcome his baby boy with so much gifts and joy in his heart. But when he saw the girl, his face twisted in rage. "You deceived me, Adana!" He flung the gifts across the room. "I'm done with this marriage. I regret the day I married you. I never want to see your face again. In fact, I'm returning your bride price. You and your useless daughters are dead to me." And just like that, Desmond left Adana with their 8 children. They joined her to stay in the labor ward, as she couldn't afford another room for them to stay in. Adana used up the last money in her bank account to pay for the hospital bills so that they would be able to discharge her, and now she was left with nothing, as she didn't have any business and relied only on her husband. Now that Desmond had abandoned her and the children with nothing, the harsh reality of life hit her hard, and she realized that her husband had left her and the children to die because he knew she didn't have a job or any place to stay with her. 8 girls, and he still chose to abandon them. She tried going back to the house to beg Desmond, but he threw her out after giving her the beating of her life and told her that he never wants to see her there again, before she would rub off her bad luck on the new wife he had already brought in. Adana left there heartbroken, bitter, and betrayed. And so, with nowhere to go, nowhere to stay, Adana entered the streets with her children, and they began living in the street like beggars, begging everyone passing by just so they could see something to eat. Some people, when passing by, shook their heads in pity at them. Some mistook her for a mad woman. Some wondered how she had those many children, while some wondered where the father of the children was. They stayed under the scorching sun, slept under the rain, and all this, while Adana's heart bled because she couldn't bear to see her children suffering. All this while, Adana silently prayed to God in her heart to help her and her children, to end this suffering for them. She watched her children growing leaner, weaker and thinner every day, and prayed to God to help them, as she didn't know how much longer they could hold on. Some days they even had to sleep hungry, and it was the growling sound of their stomachs that woke them up the next day. Her eldest daughter had once asked why their father abandoned them, but Adana couldn't say anything, and instead she just cried. How could she tell them that their father considered them all useless and worthless just because they were females? A fate that they didn't even have a choice in. But soon enough, things were about to change for them. One fateful day, As they sat at a spot under a mango tree begging for alms, a black SUV drove slowly and parked in front of them. A man dressed in a black suit came down from the car and walked up to Adana. Adana, who didn't know what was going on, was shocked and wondered what was happening. The man introduced himself as Luke and explained that he stays in the residence, and he has been seeing her and her children, and wanted to know what happened, wanted to know her story, and why she was fending for these children all by herself. Adana burst into tears as she explained everything from the beginning up until this point. After she was done narrating her story, she was now fully in tears. But what happened next shocked her. Luke came closer to her and gave her a hug, silently assuring her that everything was going to be all right. Luke didn't even mind that she was looking so dirty, haggard and smelling, but he still comforted her. He pulled back after a while and told her to get into the car with her children, that he was going to give them a better life as from that day onwards. It turned out that Luke was actually a billionaire who lived in an estate nearby, and he has been observing Adana and her children each time he passes by and had compassion for them. He couldn't bear to see them suffer, and so he decided to help them. Luke was previously married, just that his wife had died recently, while giving birth to their twin boys, and he was still mourning her loss. He knew how much his wife loved children, and so he couldn't bear it when he saw what Adana and her children were going through, and so he knew he had to do something about it. And so from that fateful day, Adana and her children's life changed. He took them in, enrolled the girls in school, and treated them like his own. His twin boys, who had lost their mother in childbirth, embraced Adana as their new mother. For the first time in years, Adana knew peace. Meanwhile, back at Desmond's house, things started to crumble for him. The new wife he had married, whose name was Amaka, was a devil in disguise, and he didn't know it until it was already too late and he had lost everything. Amaka was a very smart lady, and so after she got married to Desmond, she figured out that something must be possibly wrong with him, since his previous wife had borne 8 girls and still no male child. And so she decided to go to a hospital. After getting to the hospital, she confirmed that indeed Desmond had very few male cells, and so the chances of him ever having a boy was very slim. Now knowing this information, she knew she didn't have to take the risk of getting pregnant by Desmond. Knowing the main reason why Desmond married her was just because he needed a male child. And so she couldn't take any chances. She decided to sleep with another man and pin it on Desmond. And that was exactly what she did. And so Amaka got pregnant with another man's child and made it look like Desmond was the father. Desmond, not knowing about this, was overjoyed that he had eventually gotten what he always wanted, confirming his thought that Adana was the problem all this while. But nothing stays hidden under the sun forever, and one day the truth must surely come out. And so one day, Desmond's son, whose name was Johnny, fell terribly sick and was rushed to the hospital. Amaka, who wasn't around, didn't know what was going on, for she had travelled the previous day. At the hospital, that was where the truth came out. Johnny needed a blood transfusion, and after some tests were made, they found out that his blood didn't match at all with that of Desmond's, and so it was revealed that Johnny wasn't Desmond's biological son. This particular news completely shattered Desmond, leaving him devastated and in tears. And so, he went back home and patiently waited for Amaka to return. After Amaka returned, he confronted her with so much anger in his heart. But what he didn't expect was that Amaka was also ready for him as well, because she had a feeling that this day would eventually come. And so their conversation turned into a heated argument, which quickly got physical, and Amaka picked up a sharp object nearby and used it to hit Desmond on the head. While he was still trying to fight back, she delivered the final blow by kicking him where the sun doesn't shine, which made him to pass out. After that, she quickly rushed to take her son with her and leave the house. But before she left, she went to Desmond's safe, where he kept all his important documents and stole everything. She already knew his password after months of careful observance, and so it was easy for her to do this. After Amaka had taken all that she wanted, she ran away with her son. It was one of Desmond's friends who had come to visit him that saved him. After seeing him passed out on the floor, he quickly rushed Desmond to the hospital. On getting to the hospital, Desmond was admitted, and he was informed that his manhood had been damaged, and he was now impotent. Desmond cried his eyes out that day. He regretted the day he brought Amaka into his house. Now he couldn't father any more children. He was as good as useless now, a vegetable of a man. What made him a real man had been taken away from him, and just like that, every other thing followed suit and started to crumble in Desmond's life one by one. He lost his job. Debtors were on his neck because he had borrowed money to pay his hospital bills. And his colleagues were threatening his life as well, because the documents which Amaka had stolen was something that was supposed to be beneficial for them all. And now he had lost it. He had lost everything. After 3 months, when his hospital bill expired, Desmond was forced to leave, and he couldn't go back to his house because his rent had expired, and the little money he had left in his account was what he used to feed for the 3 months. And so, with no other option, because he had been forsaken by his friends and family members as well, Desmond went into the streets to start begging. As the days went by, his appearance worsened. He grew thinner and frail, and he looked no different from a madman. Some people even ran away when they saw him. Others spat at him, while children threw stones at his direction and ran when he attempted chasing them. Desmond spent his days waking and sleeping on the dirty roads of the street, under the scorching sun and under the rainy weather. But one day, as he sat under a tree, begging for alms from the people passing by, he saw something his eyes couldn't believe. A woman who looked exactly like his former wife, Adana, stepping out of a black sleek SUV car and hugging a man who looked neatly and richly dressed. Desmond cleaned his eyes to be sure of what he was seeing and looked more closely again. Indeed, it was Adana, his former wife, whom he had abandoned and left to die. His eyes widened in shock as he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Comment down below if you would love to see the continuation of this amazing story. And if you enjoyed this first part of the story, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so you won't miss when next we upload a video.